So I ask for your patience tonight. Please, if I make a joke and it doesn't go well, please just laugh. Kind of need that. But my topic tonight, obviously, is Ecclesiastes and the philosophy behind it. I do not have time to go through the whole book tonight, but I will try to cover one of the biggest questions asked tonight, and what is the meaning of life? And more specifically, as Solomon asks, the meaning behind life. He is the writer of Ecclesiastes, and he tries to find the answer of life through what earthly means. But at the end, he finds that he can only find real meaning, real solidity in life through heavenly means, that is, through God. It's important to see why the earthly means cannot come to this same conclusion and cannot bring the same satisfaction now. Before I go more into depth, I must explain one thing, and that is the true definition of vanity. In modern times, vanity is defined as prideful, as something shallow, as something with no real value. Using this definition, the book of Ecclesiastes can be interpreted in a completely different direction than what is intended. The original Jewish sense of the word is brevity, something short, happening in an instant, and the literal translation is a vapor or a breath. So saying that life is the vanity of vanities, Solomon is not saying that life is the meaningless and most meaningless things of all. He is saying that life is very short, and very short, especially when compared to God's big picture. So what is this big picture? Chapter 1, verse 4 through 8, and chapters 8, verse 17, Solomon gives us a glimpse of this idea. Chapter 1, verses 4 through 8. One generation passes away, and another generation comes, but the earth abides forever. The sun also rises, and the sun goes down, and hastens to the place where it arose. The wind goes toward the north, toward the south, and turns it around toward the north. The wind whirls about continually, and comes again on its circuit. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. To the place where the rivers come, there they return again. All things are full of labor, but man cannot express it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear hearing. And in chapter 8, verses 17. Then I saw all the work of God, that a man cannot find out what the work that is done under the sun. For though a man labors to discover it, he will not find it. Moreover, though a wise man attempts to know it, he will not be able to find it. Now, throughout this book, Solomon is concerned with human suffering, and it is a big part of life. And more importantly, why God has allowed human suffering into something that he has created. The old Jewish way of thinking is that suffering is merely earthly punishment for sin. However, Solomon comes to the conclusion that man cannot possibly know God's actions. God put earthly suffering into our world because it is simply his doing. We cannot know how God feels. We cannot know his acts. We don't know his methods. And we cannot possibly attempt to understand him, for he is God. God has made everything on earth for a reason, and we cannot understand it. And in everything he made, there is beauty, even if we cannot see or understand it at the moment. As well as suffering, Solomon also sought for meaning. And at this point, we know that we cannot understand God's intentions. But when he made life, we can also find what brings meaning into our lives. Before his final conclusion, Solomon experimented with various earthly meanings of finding meaning to life. In doing so, Solomon drifted away from God, being drawn more towards earthly pleasures, more specifically pleasures in general, his accomplishments, possessions, and just earthly wisdom. Dealing with pleasure, chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with mirth. Therefore enjoy pleasure. But surely this is also vanity. I said of laughter, madness, and of mirth, what does it accomplish? I searched in my heart how to gratify my flesh with wine, while guiding my heart with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see that what was good for the sons of men to do under heaven all the days of their lives. So why is Solomon dissatisfied with a life that consists of nothing but pleasure? It's simple. An idle life produces nothing. It is essentially wasted, as it is a truly meaningless life. So Solomon moved on to accomplishments, to possessions, to making something. But after great works, building many cities, taking years, Solomon was still dissatisfied. So verse 11 puts it in that same chapter. Then I looked on all the works that my hands had done, and on the labor which I had toiled. And indeed, all was vanity and grasping for the wind. There was no profit under the sun. And to understand the anxiety that this brought him, We can look at Luke 12, verses 19 through 20. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have made many goods laid up on you for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, Fool, this night is your soul be required of you. Then whose will those things be, which you have provided? What Solomon realized is that his accomplishments would not bring him any joy after his death. He knew it would not bring him eternal joy. The other people will come along after his death and claim his possessions as their own. And Solomon saw that pursuit of attaining everything was ultimately fruitless, because he could never truly enjoy it. Now Solomon also turned toward earthly wisdom, but quickly found that in chapter 1, verse 18, for much wisdom is much grief, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. However, he elaborates more on wisdom in the later part of Ecclesiastes. Wisdom is ultimately better than foolishness, he concludes, but he finds that this does not prolong life. In chapter 9, verses 2, all things come alike to all. One event happens to the righteous and to the wicked, to the good, the clean, and the unclean, to him who sacrifices and him who does not sacrifice. As is the good, so is the sinner. He who takes an oath, as he who fears an oath. So what can bring this true happiness, this eternal happiness? It's happiness after death. So let's look again at the final verses in this wonderful book, that is 12, 13 through 14. So let us hear the conclusion of this whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is man's all. For God will bring every work into judgment, including every secret thing, whether good or evil. Solomon finds that to have comfort in life, you must be right with God. God brings a sort of, he comforts. You know that afterwards you will be in heaven with him and that everything will be all right. And then after that we all face the judgment. And today as Christians, after the birth and death of Jesus our Savior, we find evidence of this everlasting life. Especially in John 3, verses 16 through 18. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For God who did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. He who believes in him is not condemned, but he who does not believe is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God. If there is any who need to come forward tonight, now is the time to do so, as we all stand and sing.